Are you nervous when speaking to someone? Would you like to develop confidence when you share your message? Learn the 3 Ps to help you deliver your message so those listening hear and understand your information.
Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth-running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining me today. If you missed my last episode and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on my social media pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. And if you'd like to receive notifications when my podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. This episode is a little different than my usual interviews, as I recorded multiple podcasts in one day at an event, and I didn't have bios to read at that time. So let me share a little bit about my guest today. Justine Reiss is an experienced voiceover artist, podcaster, executive coach, and thought leader with over 20 years experience in the business. She has narrated audiobooks, voiced numerous commercial campaigns, voiced animation, grunted her way through video games, and hosts the TechLink Health podcast and Such a Voice podcast. Reiss inspires others to step out of their fear, find freedom in their work, life, and sometimes start to work in the space of voiceover, or to increase their bottom line by using their words in a more powerful way. Now to the interview with Justine Reiss. Well, Justine, welcome to the show today.
I'm so happy to be here, Candy. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am looking forward to the conversation. But before I get into any questions that I want to, chat with you about on this topic, I'd love for you to tell me just a little bit about yourself and how did you start helping entrepreneurs find their voice?
Oh, that's a great question. So back in the day when I was a young lass, I knew I wanted to be an actress, but I was terrified. And my parents knew this about me and they wanted to encourage me, but I was really more interested in sort of fitting in than standing out. This was like between sophomore and junior year of high school. So I always say every journey begins with a baby step. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe all you entrepreneurs out there was something that drew you to get where you are today. And it started with some tiny step. So my parents said, you're going to drama camp. And I was like, absolutely not. I am not doing that. I don't want to become a drama crazy person. And they said, no, you're going. And I said, what if I hate it? They said, you can come home. Well, of course I didn't hate it. I loved it. And it literally changed the trajectory of everything I did after that, because I somehow gave myself the freedom to use my voice, learn. We did dance. I just never wanted to leave that environment of creativity. But over time, even though I became a theater major, and if your kids want to do that, tell them to get a business major too, because it is what we learn to do as entrepreneurs, to sell the things that we love to do. And this is a tricky subject too, is like, how do we stay creative, but still use that as our passion with purpose and make money from it? And sometimes there's guilt around that. So that's a whole other thing. But this idea of stepping into the power of the voice, and how over time I kept sort of backing away from it. I would have success in the voiceover industry because that's the area that I chose to pursue for various reasons. And it would almost scare me off. And I would say, well, this can't be right. So that fear, that same fear that stopped me from becoming an actress in high school, would creep in again. And I would start doing something else, like spend $65,000 on a franchise. In marketing. Now, I learned a lot about marketing, but I could have taken 10% of that, about $6,000, and put that into my biggest commodity, myself, which for some reason I stopped trusting that I was enough. So it made more sense somehow to spend, 20 times, 30 times, 40 times that amount of money on something else, borrow it. So I was not in alignment with myself. I did not know really who I was or what I wanted. I drifted away from that voice that I found, and that I did some other things, obviously, and the success, but I kept coming back to voiceover. And then I started coaching voiceover, and I found that as I coached voiceover, not only did I find my voice more authentically, but I was helping other people do the same. So what was happening was not only learning how to do voiceover and get jobs in voiceover, but I could see the confidence being built in people by learning this true, authentic voice that they had, that then they could go empower themselves and actually make money at it, doing something that, now we can work from home. So the voiceover industry as a side gig is so great. And you can do it at any age. Our age doesn't matter. That's a beautiful thing for women entrepreneurs, so that you can have a lot of ownership over something. And that's tough to have as an entrepreneur. So I feel like I'm on a little bit of a mission to not only help people get jobs in voiceover, but open up the creative doors to the things they think they can't do. Stop saying it's too late. I should have done this a long time ago. This is something you actually can do. And then not only voiceover jobs, but how do we show up in the boardroom? How do we show up in conversations more authentically? When you think about it, voice was being used for communication before the written word, before biblical times. And when somebody said that to me, and I was like, that's profound. Because as we learn to really empower our voices, and a lot of people that are listening to these podcasts, we are being tasked with having to get on stages and speak, sell from stage, get into uncomfortable conversations. A lot of people get very uncomfortable around selling. But let's be honest, if we're an entrepreneur of any kind, we have something to sell, but we can do it in a heart-centered, authentic way that doesn't make other people uncomfortable. And if they don't want what we have, that's fine. They can go find it somewhere else. So we have to get out of that grasping need to achieve and be result oriented. So a lot of the concepts I use with my students in voiceover, like send it and forget it, which means when you audition for something, press send and forget it. Because you can't sit and wonder what's going to happen when they hear it. Did I do a good job? Out of my control at that point. How freeing is that? Because then when the call gets in, hey, you got booked, I can celebrate. And I still celebrate every time I book a job. It's still like the greatest feeling, but I don't sit and worry about it or wonder about it anymore. So that was a long answer, but I hope it made some kind of sense.
Right. Well, some people may be listening and hearing that and thinking, well, I'm not interested in doing voiceover and all those things. My business is totally different. So I don't know if this applies, but obviously, like I said, we all need to find who we are authentically to be able to speak out. And there's a lot of times we feel intimidated, because somebody is, seems so much bigger, better, whatever, so like, what tips can you give to somebody who is an entrepreneur, who's running their business, or maybe it's somebody who works for a company that is feeling overshadowed? How do they find their voice to speak out?
That is such a great question. Well, I would say this is a space I want to get into, and I want to work in corporations with some of the same fun exercises that I do with voiceover students, because what happens is when we can tap into certain things we do, and I call these the 3 Ps. One is our pitch. So our pitch is how high or low I say something. The second P is our pacing, how quickly or slowly I say something. And what happens when we get nervous?
Talk faster.
We talk faster. And what happens when we talk fast and we're trying to deliver a message or be in a conversation, you might just sail past the most important piece of your message, and your audience is not hearing it. And your audience could literally be one person in a conversation. So being aware, and I still, it was interesting. I was recorded on a phone call once. It wasn't entrapment, but for some reason, this phone call got sent back to me and I got to listen to it. And I was like, wow. I tend to have that, what we call, I don't want to be foul, but a resting face. You know what I'm talking about, right? I have this sort of deep tone. It can, if I don't add a smile, and like I'm doing right now, and if you're just listening and you're not hearing, smile is incredible. Try this, Candy. Make a scrunchy face and say, I love you.
I love you.
Now smile and say, I love you.
I love you.
First of all, it feels better.
Mhm.
You know, there's actual science behind a smile and how it makes us feel.
Mhm.
Really, voiceover is all about how we're making the other person feel.
Mhm.
So it's completely transferable to the boardroom, the conference room, the sales call, the discovery call, because as we get to know people, we want to connect with them. And the more you can authentically show up in your voice over the phone, like I said,
Mhm.
in a conversation, and it still is the psychology of tuning out the voices in our head. We come into conversations with a lot of preconceived notions about what we think the other person, you know, Byron Katie does a lot of work around this. If any of your listeners are familiar with Byron Katie work, I'm doing a coaching program with a guy named Justin Michael Williams, who is all about helping people dream bigger and tuning down that noise in our head. So when we tune
Mhm.
down the noise in our head, we can empower our own voice, our inner voice. So that's what this is about. And that's how I can relate it back to other people. So let me tell you, the third P is physicality. And getting into the smile really leads into that, because motion creates emotion.
Mm.
And in voiceover, we work behind a microphone. So you don't see if I'm waving, but even just now I waved, or I look up, I look down. We can control with our physicality a lot where our voice goes. So
Mhm.
getting in touch with those three things in a tangible way can help everybody do what they do better.
Mhm. I think that's great information too, because a lot of times people are still on phone calls. Yes, now because of COVID, a lot of people had gone to video conversations, but there's still a lot of phone conversations, and
Yeah.
people may not realize how they're coming across on the phone. And so I think where you were even saying, make sure you have that smile, right? In your voice, they'll hear it. Or if you want to get something across and you're still using gestures, like that's going to impact how you're speaking, right? And it's not going to be as monotone of a conversation or something like that too. So I think that's really important that you even brought that up, because people might be thinking, well, they're not seeing me, right?
Right. So
Doesn't
it doesn't
matter.
matter.
Mhm.
So the truth is, you can show up in your pajama pants, but still smile.
Mhm. Right.
Don't be asleep.
Mhm. So, how do you encourage people to build that confidence? Because we do know a lot of times people are afraid to speak out, or maybe, as entrepreneurs, just because we're successful entrepreneurs doesn't mean we really like to talk all the time, right? We're introverted, a lot of us, right? And so, like, what are some of the pieces of advice you'd give to someone who maybe still needs to build that confidence that, yes, you have something valuable to say and people need to hear it? Or maybe it's harder for you if you're shy or introverted to really get out. Like, what are the pieces of information you would share?
I think that's a very good question. I think one of the most important things is to get clear about your message. When I'm doing voiceover for a client, it's their message. So I have to get connected to their message. But in essence, it should be easier for me to get clear about my own message. But I think, like a lot of us, when we have to infuse what we're doing with personal stories that seem relevant, we sometimes get a little blocked creatively. We might ramble a little too much about a
Mhm.
certain thing that isn't relevant to the point of our story. So work with somebody. Jackie Bailey is someone that I work with. In fact, she and I were thinking about doing something called a message makeover mastermind. And I think we are going to do this, where she's great at structure and I'm great at finding tone. So figure
Mhm.
out what your message is. So this might require some writing, maybe some sort of Mad Lib type writing where you actually say, what's your motivation behind whatever you're doing? I want the world to know blank so that they will blank. I want the
Mhm.
world to know that they need my credit card service because they're spending way too much money with the one they have.
Mhm.
And we provide, and then all the things, and make it very simple. When you can connect to that message and keep that simple, then it's almost like you've developed a little script. And I am not saying to read a script.
Right.
What you want to do is get good at delivering a script like you're talking. And this is
Mhm.
where the voiceover thing really channels in well to everything I do, because that's what I'm tasked with is reading words on a page, but making them sound natural. And it's so much harder than we think. So get
Mhm.
clear with the message and then work with somebody to listen to you. And even just recording yourself and listen back, you might be surprised. You might think, wow, I'm giving this 150%. And you come back and listen and you'll know
Right.
that it's only like 32%. So then you can start learning about, okay, what of the 3 Ps could I add here? Maybe some more physicality. Maybe I need to slow down this one piece, like in a commercial, for instance, where there's selling points, right? So I know that I have to sort of key into what the selling points are. So let's say it's delicious flavor or roasted coffee beans. So I might take a little more time with those specific things. Certainly, whatever you're selling, the product name, the service name, put some pauses around it. So it's kind of simple stuff. And then it's just becoming aware of those things and then learning to apply them in whatever your pitch is, your speech is. And once again, I think that we are all in this age of social media. If we're not utilizing it, we are kind of missing the boat on how we can reach our audience. Unfortunately or fortunately, this is where we're at. That franchise that I bought, it's kind of funny, Candy, was a marketing franchise. And it was right on the cusp of like Vistaprint and all these online things. Social media, I think maybe we were like in fact, this is hilarious. MySpace had just started and Facebook wasn't even a thing yet. And I had somebody actually ask me, would you like me to create your MySpace profile? And was going to charge me to do that. So think about where we have come. This was only like, this isn't that long ago, right? So the transformation of media, social media, and technology, we got to get with it if we're going to even be entrepreneurs and survive. And I want everyone to survive and achieve, and particularly the women out there. And you mentioned something, or maybe it was on my last interview, about trauma from our past. That's usually also get in touch with that. What was the thing that happened to you as a kid where you were silenced? Was it just, hey, nobody talks at the dinner table? Or was it, this is what happened to me. I wanted to be in the school play in 5th grade. And I was told your grades aren't good enough. That stuck with me. I mean, I remember Miss Patch and her horn-rimmed glasses and her red hair. And I was like, she was the meanest person. I knew I was the best one to be in that play. And then look what happened. I got silenced and afraid to step out on stage again until my sophomore year, when my parents pushed me out into it. But then over time, then we can't really get into this, but I felt silenced in other ways. I ended up getting married to somebody who I sort of felt silenced by, and it took me a long time to sort of recognize that and move on from that. But whatever it is, if it's, I'm not comfortable with the job I'm in, learning to speak up. I'm in the world of dating now, and I'm like, it's weird because how do I speak up as the woman I am today and not the 18-year-old I was when I started dating? So
over time you get better practiced.
Yes. Yeah. But that's where I think all this confidence building that happens with the voice can show up literally in every area of your life. And that's where it's applicable. And it has nothing really to do with voiceover. But if you want to do voiceover, I'd have a leg up too.
Right. Well, I know we're running short on time, so I would love for you just to say if you have an offer for the listener and how they can connect with you if they want to find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can connect with me in all the usual places like LinkedIn. I will give my Linktree is great because I post all my workshops. I do have webinars in voice. If you really are interested in voiceover, absolutely reach out to me. And I have a webinar, and then I will do a free voiceover evaluation with you, which again is fantastic. Even if you are not interested in voiceover, just to kind of see where you're at and what kind of things you might work on. And then in addition to that, I do have a free download, which is 7 tips to use more power in your voice. And I will get that to you so you can post that with your listeners. And then just stay in touch with me. I have a podcast too called the Such a Voice podcast, where we talk about all the different elements of voiceover, people who hire people that use voices and why. And then we have a whole training program to help you in those areas. So I'm very passionate about the voice in every arena. And I'm really passionate about specifically women of a certain age to get unstuck and use their voices in a more powerful way on any platform. So Happy to talk
Perfect.
about that.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest today and talking to me on this topic. I really enjoyed our conversation.
So did I. It was fantastic. And I'll fill out your form and can't wait to hear the episode, get it out there.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. I hope you found this discussion interesting and enjoyed the discussion on using your voice to show up in the world. Would you please share my show with those you know and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform? I'd really appreciate your support. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Justine or send me a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join me for my next interview. And remember, you can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. This episode is sponsored by Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll Services. If you are overwhelmed trying to handle the financial aspects of your business, AB&P is here to help. Contact us today to discuss your needs at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.